Hi there, everyone. I'm going to talk about, we very recently did solar PV panels. I know Maria's covered this, so we've had a similar experience. Have you got the slides? Yes, there we go. So we started this as a very random thing where my partner had seen a Facebook ad. It's exactly the kind of way you shouldn't start it, probably. And he clicked on it, and some guy rang him and came over to the house and was all chat about solar PV. And at the end of it, he had a piece of paper and he gave us a quote. And the two of us came away from it realizing we know absolutely nothing about this and we really need to do our research. Could you move on to the next slide? Thanks. So I went and did quite a bit of research on boards.ie, because there's actually quite a detailed discussion going on there. Most of it was voyeuristic, just looking and listening and seeing what people were saying, but was really, really informative. And I did message a few people and have sort of chats with them privately, which I found very, very useful. Things around batteries, should you or shouldn't you, all that kind of stuff, to get yourself up to the point where you had enough knowledge to make an informed decision. So we had the one quote, and then I picked two other vendors based on the information I had sort of unearthed in my research, and we approached those two other vendors for quotes. One of them came over to the house again, and the third one didn't, but he did several phone calls and a lot of shared email information, which was actually really good because it allowed us to peruse it in our own time, to cross-reference it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the other two quotes were very much, here you go, there's a figure on a piece of paper and that's what you get for it. The steps that I've just put them here, just purely for information, it's a very structured process. You must choose your installer before you go on to apply for a grant, you need to make sure that you can get yourself up to a C rating. I don't think it's a C1 there. I've actually revised slides, Brian. These aren't the most recent ones. So I don't know if these have my quotes in them, which I have in my current one.
So, sorry about that. We'll see if we can get the most recent one.
Yeah.
Up, but if you can keep going, then
yeah, okay. I will. So the vendors, some vendors give you the option of they will do the whole grant process for you, but we decided we'd do the grant application because we weren't sure where our BER was at. We had moved into a house that had nothing in it. We had done some work with the builder, but we didn't know what it had brought us to, and we hadn't gotten a revised BER from 2016. So we didn't know where the house stood right now and if solar PV panels would be enough to bring us to an eligible grant level. So that's why we did a separate, we got a partial BER, and then when we knew what the PV panels would do, we knew we'd make it for the grant, because that was actually a really big factor, getting the grant for us. So SEAI, confirmed you're eligible for the grant, and off we started on the process. And you have 8 months to do it. And we had it done and dusted in about 2 months, I'd say, with about COVID in between, which of course prevented the vendors or the suppliers from coming over. So the next slide. What happened was that we got 3 quotes. I found that they were highly variable. And I found that the 3 different vendors gave us 3 very different options, with the difference of between 2.3 kilowatts up to 3.75 kilowatts. So they were very different. One had no battery, one had a 2 kilowatt battery, and one had a 5 kilowatt battery. And we decided in the end to go for the larger specification, which was 10 panels, which seemed like a lot now in hindsight. 3 on the back, 3 on the front, and 7 on the back, and a 5 kilowatt battery, because we were kind of trying to future-proof it in case we get an electric vehicle in the next couple of years, that we would be able to charge that vehicle. Just to try and think ahead. The grants varied from 8,600 to 6,100 to 7,460. And the amount of grant that you got varied in each of those specifications. So I have to say, I didn't find a great deal of consistency across the quotes. And I was really glad that I had done a bit of research to help me understand, was I getting bang for buck? We went with the middle one, which was 7,400 after the grant, with the 5 kilowatt battery. And it was roughly neck and neck with the middle one, which had a 2 kilowatt battery. So we opted for the slightly more expensive one. My next slide is about solar production. And basically the vendor that we went with, he never actually came to the house, which I thought was really unusual. But he had Google Maps, he was showing us everything. He had emailed all our documentation around the orientation of the house, the estimated monthly energy solar we'd get. And he had loads of really detailed information, which was very scientific and factual, and offered me a great deal more reassurance than just the piece of paper that I was getting with the other vendors, which I was less happy about. And he also gave us some information about the carbon dioxide gas that we were saving if we were to install that amount of PV. Now, we weren't going to use all the solar PV electricity that we were generating, but at least we were, you know, having we were pushing it back to the grid, and we were, you know, just using less that was coming from carbon dioxide. It was kind of free. And he gave us an estimate of how much we would save if we use 60% of the PV or 70 or 80. And it wasn't a huge amount. It varied from over a year, 380 to 580 euros. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that wasn't really the rationale of why we were doing it. We were doing it really to just try and harness energy that was there and available to be harnessed, and to just shift the dynamic away from fossil fuels, because we have everything in our house on gas. We have a combi boiler, we've no immersion, and we've no electric shower. So, you know, we feel we have a high dependency on gas, and we want to try and gradually move away from that. So there you go. You can see, thank you, Brian. You can see the quotes there. And the one on the right is the one we ultimately went for. So we are chucking out loads of electricity, as Maria indicated. You know, there's been a sunny April, and we've been doing really well in terms of what we're generating. Can you go on to the next one, please? Yeah, that's the one we picked. So this was the annual solar production, and we're in April at the moment, and we are producing, I checked on the app, and it's about, that's accurate. We're producing just over 300 kilowatt hours of energy. So it augurs well for what's ahead. And the next one, yeah, that's just about the greenhouse gas that we were saving and the possible savings you could make. Although, as I said, that was less our focus. And the next slide. Yeah, so you can see the front and the back of the house. We put 3 panels on the front. I was a little precious about the aesthetic initially, got over that fairly rapidly and thought, look, it's what we should be doing. We get a lot of sunlight, the orientation of our house, front and back, more on the back. So we put 7 on the back and 3 on the front. And the next slide, please. And this is what it looks like in the attic. We have everything up in our attic. So the inverter is that big box with a digital display. And then on the right is the 5 kilowatt battery. And it has its own independent socket. Just there's a whole electrical safety thing that has to happen that keeps it separate. I'm no electrician, so I can't go into too much detail about what that might involve. But it took about a half a day for the guys to put the PV panels on the roof, guy, singular, and it took a day of 2 electricians working to do this install piece here in the attic. And they fed it down through the house, and they brought it into the meter. They had a preference for going out the front, but we had a preference for going sort of more discreetly down through one of the bedrooms and trunking behind a wardrobe. And that worked out very well. They were very accommodating. And the next slide. So in terms of getting the grant, I mentioned we had a partial BR done at the beginning, and we got a second one done at the end. And the supplier has to submit a declaration of works back to SEAI. And then a BER has to be submitted. Now, because we went independently, our assessor did that independently and published it. And I'm still hoping it's due any day now. I hope the grant will come back to us. But we got up to C. I think we went from, I can't remember. The next slide, I think might say what we went from. Yeah, I think we went to a B3. So, and this is how we had to pay for it. We paid 33% when they put the installation of the roof panels on the roof, just immediately the day before, and then 33% the day before the inverter and the battery work, and then the balance on completion. So our BER was 280 because of the 2 visits component. And you can see that the SEAI grant splits across 600 for the battery and then 2,340 for the panels. And the next slide. So what I love, and Maria referenced it in her images as well, the app is fantastic. It is hypnotic to watch the energy come in and see that your battery is 100% and you're shoveling stuff to the grid, and you can have the heating on. Like we have a sort of an office room that's electrically heated, and that stays fully powered by solar now that we're working from home. I find the battery, really good because, we're not doing too much during the day with school and work, but in the evenings we do use a lot more. So it gives us that consumption option in the evenings. Yeah, the house went from a C3 to a B3. So that's what we got out of it. And then the final slide, I think, one more. So, my picture has turned around, but we still have the analog meter, and it goes backwards, which is great because we'll actually hopefully have a negative bill. Although I did mistake the €200 grant in April as suddenly free money because of this going back, which was completely misguided until I realized it was the government grant. But we, after 30 days, we had gone from 21343 backwards to 271, and we're just today I checked and it was back at 21190. So it's remarkable to see it. And the final 3 points are, it wasn't a difficult process. I feel it was worth the effort. I do really like the idea that most of our everyday life it can be powered by solar. And if we try and move to more electrical things in the house, that will be better. We aren't consuming, our self-use rate is really only 30% at the moment. So 70% of what my house is producing is going to the grid. So it will take a long time to get a return on investment, but that wasn't really what we don't ask for an ROI for our cars or for other things that we have in our lives. And I don't want to think of these panels as needing to give me back something. So I think of it slightly differently. So I hope that's been useful. That's it.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Karin. Apologies for the confusion there, but that was brilliant. And it's, and thanks very much for sharing the money, which I know people are interested in, and we have this Irish thing of not liking to talk about money with each other. But I think the main thing about this event is that it's neighbors who are just sharing information, and that idea of sharing, like, who's a good contractor, who can do the job, who did the job for you, and being able to ask neighbors is so important. So I'd really like to thank you for that. That was brilliant.